Hey guys, how's it going? This is Luke Dooley back with you for our Monday, Wednesday, Friday conversation series we've been doing. And we have a really special conversation today. It's special for a lot of reasons. We're rounding out a week. I know these are long weeks right now. Everyone is feeling like, okay, I don't even know what day it is. Is this Monday? Is it Friday? It's Friday. We're here. You've made it through another week. And I'm joined by a really good friend of mine, someone who I consider a mentor and just a friend. He was my boss for a long time and someone that I treasure dearly in my personal formation. I'm excited for the ocean and the broader community to meet if you're not familiar with. This is Gabe Lyons. He's the president of Q Ideas. Gabe, thanks for being with us.
Luke, it's so fun to be, well, for, number one, just to see you and interact, right? Like we miss this kind of interaction. And, but great to be with you today. And like most people listening, I agree. What day is it? I don't even know.
Yeah, it is an interesting time and we're all living in the midst of it. That's a shared experience, right? Tell us a little bit about what you guys are up, what you have historically done at Q, just to kind of set the context for folks around who Q is.
So we started this organization called Q Ideas in 2007, and we wanted to gather Christian leaders, people of faith from every area of the world and culture and industry. So entrepreneurs and business leaders to those who work in science, education, media, arts and entertainment, politics. And we wanted to create a space where we could ask bigger questions about where faith was going, and more importantly, where is our context changing and how can we be smart and thoughtful? So we use terms like, we believe everybody should stay curious, think well, and advance good. That's our 3-point mantra of what we're trying to lead leaders to do. And so we host events. So we've been doing an event for 14 years where these leaders come together in late April, and we all spend 3 days together just engaging, learning, listening, interacting, Q&A with a lot of our presenters on multitude of topics related to orient the Christian to know, how do I lead right now faithfully in a changing world, and do so with joy and bringing lots of hope and expectation to everything that I'm involved in. And so we also do a bunch of online events all over the world that leaders host called Q Commons in their own cities. We do dinners like Q Dinners, where we ask one big question at night over dinner conversation and provide a talk that people listen to. So a lot of ways, the goal is to help leaders know how to lead and facilitate important conversations that help people learn and really embrace the context of the culture we're in, but in a way that they can remain faithful to what they believe and try to bring that truth and that love into this current environment.
Yeah. Okay. So we have some context to this cultural moment that we're in, right? That we need to talk about. I've been thinking a lot about hope and either hopefulness or hopelessness, and how, faith, hope, and love, right? These are some cornerstones of our Christian faith. For many, they're out there going, I'm not sure where I find hope right now, either medically or from the perspective of my health or the economy, or maybe I've just become laid off, or had a dream. We talked to entrepreneurs at Ocean, right? So I had a dream to launch a business. And now I'm realizing these are not economic conditions maybe to flourish with a new business, which I don't necessarily think is true. But for folks that maybe feel like they're hopeless right now, what does faithfulness and hopefulness kind of look like in the current moment from your perspective?
Well, I do think, man, the words you just used are so important to first understand how you're relating to these words. So like fear and love cannot coexist, right? If fear is driven in, it's really hard to love because you're kind of withdrawing, withholding, protecting. It's hard to reach out. It's hard to help others. The same is true when I think about hope and hopelessness. They can't coexist, and you actually have to give energy to one of those. And I know that a lot of us have to choose that, right? It's not necessarily our circumstances are going to tell us where that hope can lie. You actually have to choose that. And when you first choose that and you start to think in a certain way and you believe that something good is coming out of this, that I'm going to look for all the signs of life in the midst of where I see a lot of death, I see a lot of change, I see a lot of restriction and restraint. Where can I find the life in this? Because we believe, and this is from my faith perspective as a Christian, that God is always taking things that look pretty bad and they're meant to cause harm, and he turns those things for good, for our society's good. And so I know in my own life, it's trying to see, well, where's this good happening? And we can talk more about in our work with Q, how we're seeing that happen even over these couple of months, but also in my personal life. We have 4 children. I'm getting so much time with my children right now. And some days, that's not always the most fun thing, but a lot of time it is. It's amazing to get this time back. It's amazing to have a little more space and time to to work outside, to do some things that I don't tend to spend a lot of time doing. And so I'm finding life in that. Now, if this goes on for months, that gets a little harder. But I think we can't look ahead that far. Christ tells us, look, don't worry about what tomorrow's going to bring. You've got enough worries for today. And I think for this moment, that's so true. So I'm just trying to worry about day to day. What are we doing tomorrow? How do we plan for that? How do we try to walk forward with a hopefulness of what is God doing in this? And without God, it is hard to prescribe where you find hope. If you're just finding hope in your things, in your job, in your career, in yourself, then that's where the hopelessness starts to set in, because you're realizing that's not enough for this moment. That's not actually working for me. And so I see a lot of people coming back to their roots of faith, of saying there's something bigger going on in the world, and I want to get realigned with that. And that's exciting too, for people to just remember what's real, what's true, what's lasting beyond just their own accomplishments.
That's such a good word, this idea of kind of going back to the foundation, right? And understanding that the foundation of my belief and the kind of the paradigm within which I operate about who God is, what he's up to in the world, like the reality that he is a God who's making all things new. Like he is restoring, he's redeeming things. And even this, he is seeking restoration. He is seeking to redeem various aspects and all of the aspects of this, right?
That's right. I think that perspective is critical, but of course it does come from that foundation. That's a Christian idea, that God's trying to always make things new, that he's taken things that are broken, that are unjust, and he wants us to work with him and partner with him to restore those things, to put them back into an order that's actually better than maybe when they first originally were created. So what an opportunity right now as we go through a reset moment for us to take account of our time, how we're spending it. Have we been spending our time well? Do I always need to be showing up at the office every day to do these things? Do I need to travel and do all of those trips that I've been doing? Sure, it's fun. There's good things that happen from it, but what does it cost me? We're having a moment now to take account. What is it costing me? What does it cost me relationally? Does it cost me something with my children? Man, I've caught up with so many old friends, Luke, and I know you have too. The other night, Rebekah and I and you and Janessa getting to just hang out on Zoom was so fun. And I'm finding that people are going back to some old, true relationships that have always been very natural in their life. And now they're getting more time with some people that they deeply love, but they just didn't have time because those people aren't proximate in their daily life. And so those are some of the good things, the hopeful things that I see God doing, even through the midst of a pretty challenging moment for all of us.
Yeah, that's good. And I know one of the things, we talk a lot about at Q is the opportunity for what would often be said a winsome Christian witness. So not only like in our own lives is there this opportunity, but there's this kind of great opportunity to be this outward witness to a broken and a longing and a hurting world that's kind of looking at folks who have this paradigm, have this foundation of their identity and their kind of their security is elsewhere, right? It's in the person of Jesus. It's in their relationship with the Father, and this opportunity to kind of broadcast this witness and let people look at that and go, wow, something different is going on with this group. They're just navigating this moment differently, right?
Yeah, it's been interesting, and a lot of different friends that some are people of faith and some are not. But it's been pretty marked for me, the response from a lot of my Christian friends, in the sense that there is a sense of flexibility to this. There's a sense of understanding, hey, going through the same type of crisis financially, loss of jobs, loss of expectation for what's coming next, and being able to have any sort of certainty towards what you're trying to create for the future. But the response has been one that's just seems softer to the moment, that seems aware that there's something good can come out of this. That's what we believe. Versus when you don't have that to rely on and you've been so used to just relying on yourself and making things happen. And all of a sudden you're told, like the rest of the world, okay, go to your room right now. And that's where I want you to just hang out. And what are you supposed to do? It's hard to make things happen. And that's where there's this great opportunity for people to really become reacquainted with what does it mean to be human? What does it mean to live a flourishing life? What's required to have that? Do I need all of this productivity? Do I need to make X amount of dollars in order to live a satisfied life? Is it okay to take a pay cut to see my income change over the next year, but still have a flourishing, full, abundant life? That's what we should be looking at. And I think we're in a moment right now to analyze that like we've never been in our life. And so take account of it, because quickly we can jump right back on the rabbit wheel or the hamster wheel and just be running again. And we won't have taken advantage of what has felt like a pretty holy moment to just stop, pause, reflect, and then remember, and then walk forward in a new way.
Yeah. So good. So I know how this works. I think they're watching this, whether they're watching it live or whether you're watching it later, which by the way, if you're watching right now, say hello, put a comment in. If you have a question for Gabe, or if you have a question that you want to see us kind of discuss or talk about, put that down, or just encouragement, something that you're seeing, an area of your life, you're seeing like restoration, you're seeing you're trimming away some of the fat in your life, and you just want to kind of celebrate that, put that down there, and kind of share this so other people jump into this conversation with us. So, but I know how this works, Gabe. People are sitting here and they're watching this, and a lot of people aren't thinking this way often, or maybe a lot of folks in their church, they aren't having these conversations, or in their personal lives, and they're hearing this and it's feeling like maybe like water on dry bones, right? Or like they're going, yeah, like I'm resonating with this conversation. So I think people are hearing this and they're going, okay, this guy has something to say, which clearly you do. Gabe, you've written a handful of books on conversations like this. You've been shepherding and leading this conversation for 20 years. You're also a really good curator. Like you're a master curator of conversations like this at your live events. And kind of one of the cornerstones of Q, the organization, over 17 years has been the annual Q conference. And that's coming up this spring, or was scheduled to be coming up this spring. And as everything started to unfold, you guys had to make a decision of like, are we still going to do this place that has become this seminal gathering of, thoughtful Christians throughout the world, really? Or are we going to kind of, bag it and say like, well, we can't do it. The conditions won't allow it. What was this process like for you as an entrepreneur, right? We talked to entrepreneurs. Like, as an entrepreneur, how did you think through this with your team and your leadership? And then tell us kind of what you guys have planned for us, next week for the world.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, the Q conference for us is the centerpiece of our year. It's where we bring thousands of leaders together. It's always been so energizing for everybody that's been a part of this community that's just kind of grown over the last 14 years. And so when this COVID-19 deal was developing, I'd say we had our eye on it in February, like a little sooner than it seemed like it was becoming mainstream concern. And it was enough, though, for us as a leadership team to decide we needed to actually start to take action and develop models that would be, is this a minor disruption? Like we're going to have an event and maybe less people are going to be comfortable coming? Or is this going to be a major disruption and we actually can't even meet? And a lot of people were not thinking that was possible yet, but we decided we're going to play out that model too. And so we started working through those, and we were having to kind of go on dual tracks, building for this live event we've done every year, but beginning to build for what could become a virtual event. And so when it became clear that everything was canceling and there was not going to be a live event, and that would have been impossible to do, probably mid-March, we were able to pull the trigger pretty quickly and move to a virtual summit. And so Q 2020 now is a virtual summit. We have 40 presenters. It's going to be a live event. I'm going to be on a stage interacting with some of our guests. Will be with us. Of course, we'll have social distancing in place, but we'll be doing live interviews. I'm going to be doing live Zoom calls with people like Tim Keller and Francis Chan and Lecrae and so many other leaders. Josh Axe, who's a great like health doctor, thinking through how do we boost our immunity during times like this. So many new talks that we added into the program, because the whole point of Q, which again stands for questions, is let's create a space where we're asking the right questions. And the questions just had to change a little bit. I mean, the last 60 days radically has transformed the way life is functioning, the way leaders in industry have to think. And so we've developed and honed talks to really fit that. And so over 2 days now, we moved it to a 2-day event, April 22nd and 23rd. We will be hosting a series of 9-minute talks, 18-minute talks, lots of conversations, interaction for a global audience now tuning in, because we basically created a digital pass. So now people can come for $99. The event usually is a $400 event. And so through those passes now, everybody has access. And so we've already seen our attendance double from what we typically would have had if it was just a live event. I mean, a good example of how this can turn for good. And we expect that to just keep going over the next week as we plan and prepare for 2 great days together, kind of unifying Christians from every area of culture who are questioning, what does this mean for faith? What does it mean for us to be strategic and thoughtful, and how we're caring about our communities, our cities, our workplaces, the marketplace? How do we be creative and strategic in this new opportunity?
Man, okay, that's awesome. So there's a lot to unpack there. First of all, the opportunity. I love the way you guys thought entrepreneurially, that strategically as a team, you said, okay, let's parallel path this. Let's imagine that we're doing a live event and keep planning. We put a year plus work into this. Let's keep going down that track. But then also let's like good leaders, good entrepreneurs, let's start to think about what happens if we have to pivot. What happens if we have to shift? So we began to think about this virtual summit model. And how are the questions changing? What is the new format? What are the new tools? So that's awesome. And then the opportunity that it created, where in Nashville at Q Live, typically about 1,800 people gather.
Yeah, we're expecting 2,000 this year, and
okay.
Now we're about 5,000 people registered for the.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
So that's got to give you hope as someone who deeply cares about this conversation, these kinds of conversations and the kinds of questions you're asking, that this many more people now are going to be exposed to what you and I believe are just really critical conversations for people of faith.
Yes, that's right. I mean, that's what's been amazing, is to sit back and realize we probably wouldn't have gone there on a digital. I mean, we've never live streamed our event. That's just been something we've kind of held sacred, gathering in person and all the unique things. I know you appreciate this when you host Oceans events. It's such a unique thing that happens when people come into a room together and the distractions are gone and they're very focused on one another, learning, discussion, lunches, dinners, versus what happens sometimes when you just watch a feed. And so for us, we wouldn't have naturally gone to this, except we were forced. The circumstances forced it, which will then make us rethink how we have to do the event in the future, knowing that we will want a live component. But now we will have to take into consideration, what does it mean for those who may not be able to travel, want to travel, have high risk for COVID-19, and so therefore wouldn't be able to come to an event. And so as it's doing to, I think, a lot of organizations and businesses, we're just having to quickly pivot into some new models. And I would say, thankfully, our team about 18 months ago, we had started to invest and build a digital platform for Q so that it would allow Q and our talks and the conversations we're trying to create around the dinner table, in churches, in local communities, in neighborhoods, right, to just expand. So we already were building a platform. So that's been helpful. We were able to kind of seamlessly now move into this platform that we had just begun to test over the last 9 months and roll out, but now it's in full force. And so everybody who actually attends the event gets a 1-year subscription to Q Media, which is our digital platform, normally $100 for a year, which gives access to hundreds of talks, documentaries, films, series, live events, and all of that has been fun to see the timing work out to where we just felt kind of prepared more than we should have been for this moment.
That's funny you said that, because I was gonna ask, like, man, it had to make you feel really great as a leader who, I know that was a big transition and that was a big push, and you had to kind of like sell this to, like, whether it's your team or your board or yourself or your stakeholders, like, we need to go this digital first direction or this digital leaning with Q Media, and this had been in the works for a long time.
Yeah.
Obviously, it had to make you kind of, as a leader now, kind of go, boy, I'm really glad we did that, right? I'm really glad we laid that groundwork.
Yeah, so thankful.
Yeah. So hey, when I reached out to you and said, hey, would you want to jump on and have this conversation with us on our channels? Yeah, sure. And we were kind of talking about it. You said, hey, let's actually get something together for your audience to make it Q conference even more accessible for them. I love how just open-handed you guys are being with this, like opening up the doors as wide as possible, making it. You could have continued the charge. Like, Q conference live is about $400 ticket. You could have charged a premium because the content demands the premium. Like, these conversations demanded the kind of voices you're bringing. But you guys said, you know what, let's make it really accessible, and then continue to take it a step further. You're offering the Ocean community 10% off. We have a code. It's Ocean10. So it's at qideas.org/2020. So this is a pretty amazing value for right around $90. You're going to get access to 2 days of this live virtual summit. That's over 40 talks. And then, I didn't even know this, you just said also a year of Q Media. That's pretty incredible.
Yeah, and on the event itself, I mean, again, we're going to start at 10 a.m. Eastern and go till 6 p.m. both days. But the first evening on the 22nd, we actually have a whole film series, 4 short films that have been curated along with the directors, where over about an hour and 15 minutes, you could pull the family together, 7 p.m. or 8 p.m. Eastern, and actually have a great film night. There's just things like that we're trying to create. We're also creating interaction so you can be chatting real time with other people who are there and meeting other leaders, even though it won't be in person. There's going to be ways to interact and do polling and just feel a part of the event. We recognize that an event like this sometimes can again, you could just be a spectator. We're trying to create an entire platform that allows us, of course, there are going to be other things going on that day, but you can watch it. If you can't watch it real time, you can come back around and watch it through Sunday night if you buy this digital pass. So you'll have time to get back to those talks and kind of digest them. Because I can promise you, some of these talks you're going to want to digest. You're going to want to stop. You might want to re-listen and think about, because they're really oriented towards where are we headed? What are the big conversations coming this year? So we're dealing with difficult topics. I mean,
yeah, I was going to ask you, crack the door a little bit. What are some of the questions you're going to ask?
Well, we're asking about vaccines. So let's talk about, our vaccines the answer here? Everybody believes that they certainly are, and certainly would be comfortable with them. But we want to dig into that a little bit and hear some different sides of that conversation about the safety of that. How do we make sure when we move forward with that they're safe? How do we make sure our government's held accountable for that kind of thing? But on the more practical side for the church, it's what is the new economy for the church? What are the opportunities for discipleship? Where is this sort of digital transformation going for those who are engaging that? We'll be talking about health challenges. How do you boost your immunity to fight off and ward off viruses of any type? But how do we just live in a more healthy way? I think that's one of the things that's going to come out of this crisis for our country, is people are going to actually take more account of their health and what are their underlying conditions, and how do we work on those, and how do we just live life at our fullest. I'm going to talk to Tim Keller about this sort of new setting we're in, which would have been a dynamic that has nothing to do with coronavirus, but where truth is really known by people now through their emotions, not necessarily through what is objective truth. So we're going to talk about the challenge of truth in an age where everybody's skeptical. I'm talking to Yuval Levin, a best-selling author of a book called A Time to Build. You're going to love this one, Luke. He really talks about, and this was, again, pre-coronavirus, I was going to have him at Q. Now it fits better than ever, where essentially Americans over the last 20 years have lost trust in institutions. That's a political institution, it's church. These institutions are being used to pretty much advance individual agendas. And he uses several examples from politics and entertainment to where the individual's lifted up way more than the institution. But these institutions actually are what form us. And when we don't have faithful, trusted institutions, we actually start to fall apart as a culture. And he's arguing it's a time to build. That was before we're seeing this reset. I think with coming through this reset, we're now oriented to walk into a new season where we can build some things again. And they're going to look different. And I think it's going to bring some alignment. Some organizations are going to start working together because they're going to be forced to work together and complement one another versus build their own little, kingdoms. I think that's good. But I think institution building is going to be something important for us as leaders to consider, because there's a lot of work that's going to be needed to be done. And especially as we think about the next generation, who's kind of suffering through a second crisis. If you think about it, the millennial generation now,
9/11 and
career path wise, and now to have this hit, it's really challenging. So there's big opportunities here for those with eyes to see, and that's where we'll go at Q. We'll be talking about all of that.
Man, it's awesome. I can't wait. I'm fired up. I'm going to be there attending virtually with so many others. So once again, we'll pull that banner up so folks see it, and it's in the comments too. qideas.org/2020. And then when you sign up, just use the code OCEAN10, save a little bit of money. That's 2 days, 40 talks, Q conference, plus the year-long Q Media subscription. That's amazing. Hey, Gabe, as we close, I want to kind of just last question and kind of moving away from the conference. Like, I feel like coming into this moment, looking at this from a perspective of someone who knows you and has kind of had a little glimpse into your life over the last few years, like, I feel like you and your family were well positioned for the COVID moment and what the changes that it brought about because of really this like deep exploration and integration of healthy rhythms and habits and kind of some of the study you and your wife Rebekah have done and really led on this front. Can you just like give a little bit, like as we close, like of wisdom for people about how rhythms have really been life-giving for you in the midst of this?
Yeah, Rebekah wrote a book that came out about 6 months ago called Rhythms of Renewal. And the subtitle was Trading Stress and Anxiety for a Life of Peace and Purpose. And it was really chronicling the last couple of years of our life of really trying to institute rhythms in our life. We have 4 rhythms that we think are critical to our daily life and to the life of our children and all those around us to really sustain emotional health, mental health, physical health, spiritual health. And so those rhythms are that we need to rest, right? We need to all take a break. If we don't rest well, we don't have much to offer. We need to be restored. So restore is the second rhythm, which is our physical activity, what we eat, what we're putting in our bodies, the activity, taking walks, like all the things that keep us physically invigorated So that's like the first two, which are kind of how you input and you become the kind of person that has something to offer. And then the last two rhythms are connect. So that's relational. That's connecting not only with those in your family, which I know for a lot of us, that's been the main focus of connection the last month, but also with friendships, with your community, with people around you, that eye to eye, face to face contact is critical. And then the fourth one is to create. And that's what we do, right? As entrepreneurs, as builders, as creators, as makers, we create. Now, create for the last month for me has been I'm out working outside. I'm building garden beds, right? And I'm using my hands and I'm getting dirty and I'm creating in a different way. But that rhythm brings life to me. If I don't get outside right now, I kind of feel it. But when I get outside and get in the sunlight and create, it's beautiful. And also in the careers you're creating and the ways that you're thinking about your vocation and how that can be oriented to what is God up to right now and how can I create and build around that. So I think those four rhythms, that conversation has gained a lot of momentum pre-COVID-19 because people are desperate for change in their life. They are running too fast. We are trying to do too much. And Rebekah and I were first examples of that. And so we just wanted to pass along some of what we were learning through that. And now when this hits, we're finding now people have a pause moment to really reestablish what rhythms do they want in their life. And so we have a podcast we do together called Rhythms for Life. And that podcast, we interview experts on these different rhythms and hear about the rhythms they're trying to live into. But that's really built this wonderful community of people who are all saying, let's encourage one another to develop these rhythms. And so that's been a very helpful thing in our life. And I hope it can be helpful for people even in the months and years ahead to just remember, again, what does it mean to be human? That's kind of the question I think it answers is what does it mean to be human? It means you have to rest, restore, connect, and create. When you're doing those four things, you're living into the design God has for you. And that helps your mental health, which we all know has been a huge challenge for most of us.
Yeah, that's such a good note to end on. I think just such an encouraging word and a reminder. And man, if you guys were here and you're watching this later on and you weren't familiar with Gabe or Q or Gabe and his wife, Rebekah, and kind of the ministry and the work that they're up to and the voice that they bring to the world, I hope that now you understand kind of a little bit of that and you're going to dive in. The Rhythms for Life podcast, the Q conference at qideas.org/2020. The books they've written. Rebekah was at Ocean Conference actually last October, and she gave an entire talk on this Rhythms for Life conversation, Rhythms for Renewal. And so you can go find that on our content at Ocean Programs website. So Gabe, thanks for sitting down with me, man, taking some time. I know it's a crazy season. You guys have a huge event in a week, and to take 30 minutes out of your day is not a small feat. So I really appreciate it.
Hey, Luke, love what you're doing and love this Oceans community. So thank you for letting us be a part of it.
All right, buddy. I appreciate you. Hey, guys. Thanks for tuning in. This was a fun conversation. I hope you enjoyed. We will be back next week. Congratulations. You made it to Friday. It's another week survived here. I hope you have a great weekend. I hope that you are well prepared for what you have ahead. Please reach out to us anytime. If anyone's watching this and you're feeling alone, you're feeling broken, you're feeling like you just need a community of support, that Ocean is here for those things and for those reasons, especially, man, if you're an entrepreneur, if you're a business leader and you're looking for answers to questions you don't know how to answer, you're looking for folks to be a part of this journey with you, or you're feeling exceptionally isolated right now due to kind of COVID and the loss of what you have typically had, please reach out to us, engage with us. We want to be that resource in your life. And you can do that at oceanprograms.org, info@oceanprograms.org. And we'd love to just continue to connect with you. We will be back next week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 3 p.m. on our Facebook, on our YouTube, and